Hello, everybody. I've got the bell here. Yes, we have to officially start, right? At 10 a.m. I know people are on, they get annoyed if I don't start at the right time. I get it. They're at work or whatever, but we are officially begun. Yes, we have officially begun. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. I've been requested to do more of the remote viewings because a lot of people don't like the live stream. I get that. I get it. But for me to tape and then edit and then to do the whole download, etc., and then upload takes many hours that I haven't had lately. So I do apologize. I will try to do more of those in the future. Let me say hi to everybody, and I promise I'll try and be focused today. Ooh, we have a lot of interesting people. We have Gail, Janet, Connie, Mary, Kimberly. Hello. Hello to Rachel, Marie, Lawrence, Ian, Mari, Cheryl, Mickey. Hello. Kyle, Christine, Teresa. Hi, Teresa. Connie, hello. Bellarine. Oh, Ruth, Ashley, Scully, hello. Caroline, Ruth, hello. Connie, let's see, did I get to everybody? Oh, we have so many people. Roxanne, hello. Donna, Miriam, hello. Nancy, hello. Sherry, oh, so many people. Lynn, if I didn't say your name, Patricia, hello. Brenda, hello. Hello to everyone. Love to everyone. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop. I'll keep going back and checking everybody's comments so that we can get to everybody. I think there's going to be a lot of us today. I think there's 156 of us right now, but I imagine last time we got something like 1,500 people. So I imagine that it's going to be a pretty good meeting today. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about before we get started. I've got a couple notes. One of the things that people wanted to talk about was the Mueller meeting, the Mueller testimony, how people felt about it. Did you feel like he was tired? He was stressed out? I think he was tired. I think he was stressed out. I think that it's been 2.5 years. I think he's exhausted. But I'll go ahead and write down everything people want to talk about today. People want to talk about the Epstein suicide, so we'll make a note of that. I had a lot of interesting hits about that, and I want to talk about that later today. But I think what I will do is we'll go ahead and we'll do our opening prayer, and then we'll take a look at Robert Mueller after that. There's a lot of international stuff we want to do today, just because a lot of people have been requesting it. Puerto Rico, to take a look at Putin, take a look at Europe, take a look at Brexit and Boris Johnson. I think that's a great idea. We got to expand our world a little bit. Also, take a look a little bit about Israel and how Israel's been responding, because some of the stuff's being linked back to Israel, so we want to take a look at that. Those of us that are Israeli are horrified. It's like, no! So we will take a look at that. Okay, yes, we will be looking at this Epstein. All right, so let's do a simple prayer, folks. Let's center ourselves. I want to call on white light protection for myself and my viewers as we ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records of the people we'll be looking at today. We call on our spirit guides and good angels to be with us. Give us the clarity and wisdom needed to empower those who watch today and to help the planet. And with that, I say, Amen, for the highest good of the planet. Let's take a look at Mueller's cards first. How you doing, Mr. Mueller? I'm going to just move this so that I have a space to use the cards. I'm just going to move this for a second. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? How's the sound? Is the sound okay? Okay, what is going on with Mueller? doing a tarot blitz today. 5-minute blitzes, any subject, so long as it's a public subject. I'm not doing any private readings today. What's going on with Mueller? Base card of the matter, the Constitution. The Constitution is the first thing that's coming out as the base card when I go into Mueller's Akashic Records, but you can see the Mastery card is finished. So in plainer words, his relationship to this investigation has come to an end. I think the last couple of years have been really, really hard on him. I think he's exhausted. I don't think he slept very well the night before the testimony. I think he had been stressed out a couple of days. I'm hearing for 2 to 3 days prior to the testimony. It was quite emotionally disturbing for Robert Mueller before going in to testify. He was asking for help, and a lot of people understood why he was asking for help, because there were a lot of people that worked on the investigation, and because he is older and he worked with a large team, and it would have been more fair to have brought in the entire team to get a better idea of the investigation. It goes back to also what we had said in previous remotes, that he would see where the investigation was headed, and then he would hand it over to an ongoing FBI investigation that had to do with that subject. He did follow the money based on what I saw, but because of the mandate, that information wasn't put in the Mueller report. It was simply sent on to ongoing investigations. Where he is at right now, walking away from the battle. What crosses it? The world, so the world will know. So now his research is done, and a better way to be looking at this situation is to look at it as an international investigation. So Mueller's role in the drama has come to an end, in the sense that he played an important role in coalescing data, collecting data, making sure that the data got to the right branches of the intelligence agencies and the feds. That was Robert Mueller's job. It was to collect data, to question people, to see if there was a there, and to hand information to ongoing investigations, and then to move on. So he has completed his role. Oh, thank you for loving the shirt. So he completed his role. Now he's walking away, and now we see the world stage moving in. So what's going to happen is that Robert Mueller has completed his role, exit, stage left, thank you, applause. He can now go retire. He's probably going to be brought in, but people probably don't want to bring him in that much because he's old and he's tired. But now we see it expanding to an international investigation. And so it's not over. The inverted Eight of Cups, in the sense that the investigation is concerned about being over, inverted Death card in the 3rd house, worried about whether or not his research will be buried or if it will continue on, and the Wish card, 9 of Cups. So the investigations will continue on. The Mueller investigations will continue on. His contribution is noteworthy. However, it goes back to what William Barr had said in the previous remotes. He wants to get DC back working again. And the public aspects of the Mueller investigation, the public investigation, made it very difficult for people to do their job. And they felt that this president, whether you like him or not, had more this is their opinion. I'm a remote viewer. I don't take sides. I'm not supposed to take sides. So Robert Mueller's feeling was that, and the feeling of a lot of the Republicans was that the president wasn't even given a chance. He was immediately met with more opposition than they had ever seen with any previous administration. And if the president did something wrong, leave it to the investigators to find it and let DC get back to being DC, but back to work. So there's this feeling of burying the public investigation, and a private investigation continues on, and a world investigation or an international investigation continues on. Where he's at right now, there's some anger here. You can see when we think of Yehudit or the archetype, of the Queen of Wands. For those people who are readers, if you want to ask how I interpret an inverted Queen of Wands, it's temperamental. I had a client call me yesterday, and she had an inverted Queen of Wands in her 7th house. And it was important that it be there because this establishes one's own territory. So it's as if she takes the staff and says, my way, my way. This is the 4-year-old holding their ground and having a temper tantrum. You know, it's like that character from Dances with Wolves. She stuck up for herself, stands with fist. That's the inverted Queen of Wands. Stands up for themselves and stands with fist. Boom, 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 my way. The Queen of Wands fights back. Fights for justice. The inverted Queen of Wands has anger or aggression. What is around? Somebody is abusing their power. Inverted Emperor. So there's a feeling, as far as Mueller is concerned, regarding this investigation, that someone in a position of power has abused the power. A judge may have abused the power. Somebody in a position, a judge, somebody who oversees the law, somebody in a position of power has abused that power. The hope and the fear of justice, that justice will prevail. It doesn't surprise me that this would be in the 9th house for Mueller. And then the final outcome, more leaks. If you have a 4 of Pentacles, which is holding on to coin and it's inverted, or holding on to what you have and it's inverted, I just see things spilling. This is an interesting card to come up with Mueller because it means that in a desperate attempt to save the investigation, some people who are close to the investigation may start rapidly leaking things in a desperate attempt to get public awareness about the investigation. This is a kind of scary outcome, and we'll just see how it plays itself out. It suggests that there are people that are in this investigation that are concerned that the investigation is going to get closed. But I don't think that's will happen because it seems to take on an international feel with these cards. All right, so let's get back to the Blitz. So people want me to look at the Epstein suicide. They want me to look at William Barr. I can do that. I was asked to look at Boris Johnson. We can do that. I was asked to look at Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is going through a renaissance, so it doesn't surprise me that the governor resigned, but we can go ahead and take a look at that. Anything else people want me to take a look at? But let's do the Epstein suicide. I had a hit on Epstein that I'm going to talk about, but we'll go ahead and we'll shuffle for Epstein. All right, Spirit, what do you want to tell us about Jeffrey Epstein? Permission to access his Akashic records. How can we help? I have a couple hits from a remote I did last night on Epstein that I wanted to talk about. That's, you know, getting into the mind of Epstein. Just cutting the deck. Okay, so this is what I got on Epstein from last night's remote. I'll go ahead and tell you what came out in the remote. In last night's remote, the first thing I did was I tried to put myself in the shoes of Epstein and try and see if I picked up anything about what was going on with him. And it looks like, from what I can figure out, he was selling information. He was selling information to the highest bidder. He was selling compromised persons information. Some of that information, foreign countries that we don't necessarily always have the best relationship with, like Russia, might have gotten a hold of some of these tapes. This may be one of the reasons why we see a falling out between Epstein and Trump, is that it could have been a situation where Epstein was handing over tapes to foreign governments or selling tapes, and Trump got found out about it. So Epstein was blackmailing people, and we had talked about that in previous remotes, that the bigger investigation will be the blackmail and how the sexual abuse of children is being weaponized for political purposes. So what appears to have happened, based on what I can see, is what I was feeling is that Epstein was selling to multiple countries. There's a rumor going around that the Austrian passport was supplied by that maybe Mossad and the Israelis. Maybe I would take it with a grain of salt. I don't know if the Israelis could get him a permanent residence in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia doesn't recognize the state of Israel and is probably one of the most hostile countries to the state of Israel imaginable. So there's something about that that doesn't fit for me. More than likely, he had permission from the Saudi royal family. If he had permission from the Saudi royal family, then it most likely has to do with the fact that he was supplying information and compromised persons' information to Saudi Arabia, to Britain, to other European countries, to the Israelis, and probably to some extent to Russia. And it allowed him to probably enter into the Middle East with very little difficulty. Now, the second part of the remote viewing that I did had to do with getting into the mind of Epstein, and that was trying to understand how the brain of a malignant narcissist, psychopath, somebody like Epstein operates. And that was really an interesting meditation, because he really has a side of his psyche, which is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So when I went into his energy, in terms of brain development, if you're talking about just Epstein's brain development, it's as if he has two brains. The first part of his brain is what those of us who are doctors, we would call it the reptilian complex. And this is the first part of the human brain to evolve. It breathing, respiration, sleep, hunger, sex, the reptilian complex, and the more primitive aspects of the limbic system. So this is like reptilian, it's what reptiles have. And then we evolve more complex. The limbic system becomes more complex with live birth. The prefrontal frontal cortex forms, which is our executive branch, a sense of self or self-identity. So what happened with Epstein is that he exists as two people. He has a reptilian. The reptilian side does not communicate with the executive side. There's poor communication between the executive and the reptilian. So for an average guy who is a healthy guy, and healthy 30-something, whatever, and he's sitting on a beach and he sees a beautiful 14, 15-year-old, the reptile brain would look at it and say, wow, that's a pretty girl. And then the executive branch of his brain would say, not ripe yet. She's too young, but she's a pretty girl. And that would be the end of it. And he would go back to reading his book. That would be the normal brain function of a guy whose executive branch of his brain and his reptilian branch of the brain are communicating. But with Epstein, there's no communication. It's just the reptile wants what the reptile wants. Sex, food, money, power. The other aspect of this primitive part of the brain is the first emotions of the brain. And the first emotions of the brain are fear. So fear is about retracting, right? So the snake's first instinct is to retract. It's the first emotion we think that life experiences in terms of emotion. It's the snake's ability to retract, right? To pull back. So fear and the ability to feel fear is the first emotion. It's the most primitive emotion. And people who have studied spinal cord injury, stiff spine, backaches, etc., talk about the spine being in an evolution of the spine of the snake. The snake has a spine and it pulls the spine back when it's in a retracted state for fear. So that's the reptile. That's the first emotion of the reptile. And then the strike response is anger, and anger is the second emotion that evolves out of the first feelings that beings are capable of, fear and anger, and that's part of the whole reptilian brain. The other is a freeze response, where they will freeze and wait and listen. That's the aspects of Epstein that put Epstein in prison. So it's the reptile doing what it wants, looking for what it wants: eat, sleep, sex, fear, anger, and repeat. Now, there's a daytime Jeffrey Epstein that is consciously aware that these bad things are going on and that he has this reptile side, but there seems to be extremely poor impulse control when you go into the energy. He doesn't seem to be able to control his actions, and he can observe what the reptile is doing, and even the executor may even have some remorse, but there doesn't seem to be any ability to control it. So the executive branch of the brain of Epstein is covering his tracks, bribing people. But the other aspect of the executor has done some philanthropy. It's not only about covering his tracks. There actually is he does have an executive and a prefrontal cortex. It's just that it doesn't communicate. So that I just wanted to share that. It was an interesting thing to see when I got into his brain. People had asked about suicide. Yes, because the executor sees what the reptile has done. And so when we had gone into his remote viewing, when we had done a card reading on him 6 months ago, he had said, "This hell will never end." So the part of him that can stand back and observe the actions of the reptile is suicidal. It's a feeling of being bipolar. It's also somebody who might have a past history of drug and alcohol abuse, cocaine, paranoia that's aggravated by drug abuse, like cocaine, paranoia that causes cocaine that can cause additional problems with paranoia. So do I think that it was a suicide? Yes, I think he realizes that he's really got one choice, and that is that he has to take himself out. And I think he realizes that he has to commit suicide, and he doesn't want to do it. There's pressure on him to commit suicide rather than name names. So now he's under suicide watch. The other thing that I felt was that the Israelis probably took the information. They might be able to weaponize it, but I also think they shared it with the United States. Let me go ahead and we'll just take a look at the future of Epstein with the cards. I used to know a guy like this, and he had the same birthday as Epstein. He was a truly tormented man. I think some types of medications might be able to help somebody like this. But yeah. And evidently he went for help and he was thinking of taking medication, but they don't. The other thing about these types of persons is they don't want to take their medication. They want to do it on their own, which doesn't work, of course. It's going to be with Epstein. I don't think he was attacked. I think he attacked himself. I think he tried to, and I think that he's too afraid to commit suicide, but he feels that he has to commit suicide. That's what I'm picking up. The prosecution has a very strong case against him. You can, unfortunately for him, the plans being presented, Three of Pentacles moving in straight up, poor judgment. They're very calm and methodical about the case they have against Epstein. Even if they have to strap him to the bed, I'm sorry to put it this way, they're going to do everything in their power to ensure that he doesn't commit suicide, even if it's a 24-hour watch. No offer right now. wishes to flee the situation. Yeah, he was trying to flee the situation, feels that he's being pressured. So whoever his handlers are, there's tremendous pressure on him. He has three choices. He's being given three choices. Here are his three choices. Number one, he can commit suicide, which is what his handlers would like him to do. I'm sorry, this is the data I'm getting. The second is that he can let somebody else do it. Somebody else, in plain words, somebody else is going to take him out if he doesn't take himself out. That's what he's been told. So you can do it yourself, or you can have one of our people do it. The third is that he can fall under the mercy of the American government and ask for security until they get the case. But the truth of the matter is, according to what the second group said, even if he goes under American security, we will get him. Sorry, I just read cards. So that's his situation. He has no hope. The inverted star card. He's fighting many voices in his head. He's very confused. He's suicidal. He fears for his life. He feels pressure to commit suicide, doesn't have the courage to do it. Fears he's going to be taken out. The great irony is that Dershowitz, maybe to protect himself, is genuinely trying to help him. He feels like he was promised something, some type of protection that he was not given. He feels he was lied to or deceived. He was given the impression that he was going to be protected, and he wasn't. He's facing multiple charges, and Ghislaine Maxwell is also facing possible criminal charges. She could be charged in New York, and she could also be charged in other states as well. So she could be facing extradition back to the United States. And it's also saying that Epstein's going to face international charges in addition to American charges. So they're going to send him back to Europe. You can see a Two of Pentacles moving in. Multiple charges. He's physically moving. They're moving him out of where he's at right now. He's going to be moved to a new location. He's under extreme protection. He's going to be isolated, and he's going to be under high security and be offered to give testimonies to the international intelligence agencies. But after he does that, I can't guarantee his safety. I'm sorry, but that's what I see. All right. Yeah, I hope he will take his prescription, because the truth of the matter is he's insane. So we talk about the insane as evil. The majority of insane people don't harm other people, but they can theoretically harm themselves. In a case like this kind of bipolar or a split identity that I felt when I went into this energy, doctors, healthcare providers, we see people that are this mentally ill do evil things, but that's different than saying that they're evil. It's really more that we're trying to understand how the brain works, that somebody would make decisions like that. What's going on in the brain of such a person? And when I went into that energy, it was a very tormented human being who was in hell and did not seem to be able to have any control over his desires. That part of the brain, that conscious, is just not developed in him. So what do you do in a situation like that? Probably they need to be institutionalized for the rest of the. If we don't have the medications to treat this type of disorder, then they have to be in psychiatric care for the rest of their life, for their safety and for the safety of others. That's basically what I think. All right. So that's the outcome. He's going to be shipped from here probably to Europe, and he's going to be giving what they want is private testimony from him to the international community about what was going on. They already know some of what he was doing. And I don't know if he's going to continue to be safe. He may continue to be safe, but he's going under very strict protection. All right, let's go ahead now, and we're going to look at the future of Barr. People had asked about Barr next. How are we doing on time? Okay, we've got 30 minutes. I'm here for an hour. Barr, William Barr. You're not always willing to talk to me. So I did get in last night briefly. He said something to me. Let me see if I can remember what it was. Can't remember. What's going to be with you, Mr. Barr? I think he just wants the investigation to continue privately. He keeps talking about. He feels like he's righting the ship. He's landing the plane. He's getting DC back to working order, and trying to bury what he saw as a disruption in normal flow of things in DC. So he saw all this public crazy that was going on. That's what he's calling it, public crazy. And he was brought in to help with it. So his job is, Two of Pentacles, his job is to take the information and continue to make sure that the investigations continue, but they're being kept private, not because they're being buried, but because he doesn't want them to be weaponized. It's interesting. On the one hand, you can kind of see the argument. You can kind of see what the legal argument is, which is that if there's an ongoing criminal investigation, if you have this kind of public fascination and the media fascination, it's going to be very hard to prosecute anybody or to get a jury pooled that's not going to be biased. It's like Pizzagate and the attempts to sabotage this investigation, which was a major investigation into sex trafficking. So you have a lot of fake news coming in that theoretically would be able to mess with the jury pool if a jury should come up. How much fake news has come in that's going to have a negative impact on any future jury pool. So that's part of what Barr is concerned about. He can't totally squash the rumors or the public fascination, but that's what he's trying to do. He's taking an offer or attempting to work with Congress he's in trouble with Congress, and so he's going to have to be a little bit more open with Congress. Hello, Mila. Thank you for joining us. He's got some trips planned. I assume that's because they're on vacation, and then he'll be back at work. So the work is continuing. The studies are continuing. The investigation is continuing. It's just that everything is private, and there's this feeling that it needs to be the private business of the FBI and not public entertainment. And that's what William Barr wants to officially say. Sorry, that's all I can get from him. I can do a clarification. There'll be more arrests and more judges, and he, in his mind, believes that he is not politicizing it, that it's simply let the FBI collect data, let them determine who's going to be prosecuted. That's his view. All right, now people have been asking a lot about Brexit and Boris Johnson. I think, what was it, CNN called him the blonde ambition? Britain's blonde ambition. Hello, Ian. And Connie and Ronnie. A dead man walking, yeah. Hi, Angela. Obama have any role? I don't know. I can look at that. All right. Boris Johnson. Is he going to be a good prime minister? Is he going to be a bad prime minister? Is he going to be able to make... But the last time I did a remote on Brexit, the universe said to me it's impossible. Some things in life are impossible. You think, but anything's possible in the universe. No, Brexit's not possible in the universe. Mila is ringing the bell. Did you want some attention? Is that why you're ringing the bell? Yes? All right. Let us take a look. Mila, why don't you sit and say hi to everybody? What's going to be with Boris Johnson? We wish him well. We don't want anything bad. We want Britain to succeed, whatever it decides. We love Britain. What's going to be with Boris Johnson? Boris Johnson's under criminal investigation, I just heard. He may be forced to have early resignation because of an ongoing criminal investigation. Part of it has to do with money. Sorry, this is what I'm hearing. He's trying to make an offer. He's trying to fix things in Britain, but the truth of the matter is the business of Britain is a mess and the finances are a mess. The main problem I get when I go into this energy is that Britain's finances are a mess, that there's huge expenses and none of the departments or agencies are communicating with one another as best as they could. I don't know. The Brits can tell me if I'm right about this, but it just feels like there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of problems communicating with various different departments. And because the government agencies need certain things that are purchased from Europe and from other countries, Brexit could theoretically put those departments, government agencies in trouble. So there's a feeling that the business of Britain is a mess. Where he is at right now, the high priestess. So the opening of the eyes. So that's not a bad idea. If everything is a mess and nobody's communicating and everybody's off doing their own thing and everybody has a different contract that involves a different aspect of, and Brexit's going to affect that contract, everybody has to sit down and open up the can of worms and take a look at the mess. And so that's actually the first thing that's going on right now. What crosses him is he feels he can get this done in 6 months. You can see the victory card, and we read wands as months here. So we're talking about in a 6-month period. Offers, negotiations, and lovers. So one of the things he's going to do is offer economic incentive to certain communities that did not want Brexit, which is actually a really intriguing idea. I don't know if he's going to succeed, but it's almost like sweetening the pie for those parts of Britain that are opposed to Brexit. You can see him moving in with the Lover's card. What can I do to help Scotland agree to this, or to work with Scotland, to work with Northern Ireland, to work with parts of Wales that are opposed to Brexit? There's this feeling of like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. How can we come together to make this happen? And this is something I have not seen in the news, talked about in the news, is this idea of giving people in opposition some kind of incentive to work together, which I haven't heard of this in the news. He's devastated, 10 of swords by the work. So he knows that he has to work on some kind of deal or offer that's going to make everybody happy. And it's the source of the unhappiness for people who wanted Brexit. He can't do it alone. The laws of Britain limit what he can and can't do. People have already lost faith in him. You can see the 5 of Pentacles where he's at right now. He's got a long haul to prove himself. There's a ton of money coming from Europe that Britain has put on the shelf. It's almost like the goods are dropped at the dock, but nobody's collecting them. That's the image I see. It's tons and tons of wealthy, expensive product that could be bought and sold that Britain is not benefiting from while this mess is happening. Hope and fears that because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and because there's so much confusion and chaos, nothing's getting done. And then the final outcome, they will hang up Brexit. He's going to fail. It can't be done. Even if you try to, inverted Ace of Wands, it can't be done. It's impossible. He's trying to do something that's impossible. And even saying, oh, Scotland will give you these benefits if you go along. I never get that Brexit can succeed. But he's determined to do it in 5 to 6 months. I don't think he's going to succeed unless something really dramatic. Even the European Union is trying to help. Like, is there anything we can do to make it easier for you? With a Lover's card moving into the 4th house, and it can't be done because of how Britain is structured. That's the best way for me to. I just don't see it happening. It's a mess. Because the people of Britain don't want it. Some people in Britain wanted it, but now they don't. And it's just collapsing. And it's left a bad feeling in Britain. You know, I used to live there. It's a great part of the world. But, yeah. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at Puerto Rico, which is going to be experiencing a great renaissance. The music, the art, the literature, the food, the dancing, the singing, the vacation in Puerto Rico. There's Puerto Rico's getting a facelift, basically. That was what I saw from Puerto Rico. Let's take a look. I love my job. I love my job. And then after I do this, I'm going to announce our charity donations. I decided to do that at the end, since a lot of people don't really find it interesting. All right, let's take a look at Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico. And then we'll do the Trump presidency to see if things changed. What's going to be with Puerto Rico? God, I get good things for Puerto Rico. I get good things for Puerto Rico. It's like an explosion. It's like a renaissance. It's like the tech industry takes off, the arts, the music, the crafts, the literature, business. It's like they come into their power. It's like, I don't know, it's amazing. 2 of Wands, new partnerships, strong foundation. What's changed for Puerto Rico is that they're not willing to compromise or do things differently than based on their own values. In plain words, there's a feeling like this is Puerto Rico. This is who we are. This is what we're about. This is what we stand for. We're not going to apologize anymore. And so it's a big explosion of art and celebration. And they're going to save themselves. And they're going to be very non-apologetic about how they do it. 2 of Wands moving in, strong partnerships, and they will save themselves. And they're going to be true to themselves as they do it. They're also going to end former partnerships or former relationships. This is a very strong community. This is a community of people that's going to come together and really rebuild in really remarkable ways. Great. 5 of Wands moving in straight up, not inverted. That's not fighting if it's straight up, not how I interpret it. It's an exchange of ideas by people who have different views. You can see nobody's hitting anybody in 5 of Wands, and it's also been interpreted as actors building a stage, an ensemble cast of characters. So it's this idea of people from various different walks of life coming together and constructing something solid, a solid foundation. I really like the energy for Puerto Rico. They have a sense of humor about their poverty. They say, to be honest, we're broke. There's a 7 of Pentacles inverted. They've wiped out their savings. But they also have a sense of humor about it in the sense that, hey, we're Puerto Ricans, we'll come up with a creative way to make it happen. We can make a party from $10. There's like a feeling of their frugality and their capacity to make something from nothing is something that they're actually proud of. I've never been, but this is cool. They feel that they are not going to receive support from the American government. And frankly, it was never adequate in the first place. Sorry, that's what I'm hearing. They will have trade. Look, the only way they're going to improve trade with the outside world is by being true to themselves and being and they want to have solid businesses where they can be proud of their product, proud of Puerto Rico, proud of what they're producing, non-apologetic, coming into their power, not waiting to be saved. Very strong people, and they want the person who's the person who's in power now. There's a misappropriation of funds, missing money, and also failure to do the work. Money that just drained, it went nowhere. They want him prosecuted. They want actual hearings to find out what happened. The money's gone. You can see here the money's gone, and it's over this person who abused his power, the inverted King of Wands. And they hung him up, but there's also a criminal investigation they want. The party is over for him. He will never be, it'll never be okay as far as they're concerned. But this karma is over, and then we see this creative artistic explosion start to take place in Puerto Rico. What I love about Puerto Rico's Renaissance is that they will really begin to take pride in what they produce. And it's going to be a really interesting time for them, what's coming up in the coming years. All right, so people had asked if I could look at the future of Donald Trump's presidency, because we had seen, a lot of us had seen resignation in exchange for immunity. Did that change? Are we looking now at him completing this presidency full term? I don't know. Let's take a look. What is the future of Trump's presidency? Will his administration weaponize Epstein against the Democrats? This is my concern. What will be with Trump? Interesting. Trump's response is interesting. He's talking about it from the perspective of himself. And what I'm hearing from Trump is that he is angry that a lot of people he thought were his friends have used him and tried to pull things like this. So he's looking at it as a person who has been used. His name has been used to make business deals. He doesn't like when people use his name for business. He doesn't like the fact that people he trusted and partied with are now weaponizing that information against him. And this has happened before with him. That seems to be what's going on. With Trump, Mueller's cards are still here. So the consequences of the investigation that Mueller engaged in are far sweeping. He's not feeling well. There's a health concern here. He still has to answer questions. He could be deposed. There's something happening with Donald Trump where he could be called. He's going to have to answer questions. He's worried about his health. He's worried about his health. He's worried about his emotional health, his physical health. He's beginning not to trust. He's starting to get paranoid. He's begun to question Bill Barr. He's now begun to believe that Bill Barr is working with Mueller. This is crazy. Four of Cups still doesn't want to resign. Look how many offers. Paranoid, thinks that he keeps saying the same thing. He trusts people and then they betray his trust. And now he feels that way about Bill Barr. Unable to walk away, doesn't know who to trust. Outcome is the 10 of Cups. Gets what he wants regarding walking away. His time in the White House is coming to an end. Part of him doesn't want to be there. He's having a falling out with Bill Barr. I don't know why, but that's what I see. Okay, so I got to everything on the list. Let's see about the questions if I got to everybody. I'm going to go back way, way back. Okay, we got some Barr questions. We did that. Hello, Ian, Kathy, Connie, hello. I didn't get into Bill Barr's health, but I can tell you that Trump's health is not good. Oh, Violetta said that Boris had ties with Russia. Probably. He's not going to succeed. According to the cards, he won't succeed at Brexit, even if he tries to bribe Scotland and North Ireland with benefits, which seems to be one of the things they're trying to do. It's not going to work. Boris had a bad hair day. I don't know. I think he likes that messy look. I think he thinks it looks. It used to be a popular look in the 80s, and I guess he kept it. Roxanne, you want me to check out Russia? Yes, Putin. Let's look at Putin. I did a brief meditation on Putin last night. I used to think he was interesting. I used to like Putin. I used to think he was kind of even cute. Yeah, 20 years ago, before this whole thing happened. Now I'm sorry, Mr. Putin, but you're kind of boring. He always talks about the same thing. So for those people who've been fans of the channel for a while, what is Putin's mantra? I'm going to see if anyone gets it right. What is Putin's mantra? Every time we go in and do a remote, what does he say over and over and over again? Is anybody going to type it? Does anybody know what? Hey, somebody got it right. Pamela got it right. Margaret got it right. Very good. Okay, we've got stars here. So, what do I hear as soon as I start the cards into Putin? Broken record. Broken record. I want my trade routes. 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 Give me my trade routes. On and on and on and on and on. So I was reading Truth News yesterday. I was looking for alternative news, and they said that there's a buildup of troops at the Black Sea. What's that got to do with trade? Oh my God, Angela. Good job. Trade routes. He wants his trade routes. So I had a very interesting conversation when I did a remote last night with Putin about his relationship with Iran. And his response was, look, it's about trade routes. Let me get my vodka out. Let me sell my damn trade. If he's trying to sell vodka out of Chechnya and the Soviet Union, boy, did I get some propaganda last night. What the Russians wanted to say, I almost wrote it down. There's a lot the Russians wanted to say to us, but for starters, they wanted to say that it's all about trade routes, that America said that they were going to help Russia when the Union collapsed. And when the Union collapsed, they lost their trade routes. Not only that, but they feel that they did a lot of good when they were the Soviet Union. They specifically pointed out the illiteracy rate of many of the places that they had gone into, that there was no literacy, there was no child vaccination. We brought Russian education, we brought vaccination, the child life expectancy increased. We brought infrastructure to areas that didn't have roads. Why are roads important to Putin? Anybody going to get it right? It's always the same answer. Why did they build infrastructure in Mongolia? Why did they build infrastructure in Georgia, Baku, Azerbaijan? Trade routes. Very good. Trade routes. So why would he be sending military to the Black Sea right now? Trade routes. So who was attacking his truckers, when his truckers were leaving Chechnya, when his truckers were leaving Russia and taking trade out through these trade routes, who was attacking him? Saudi Arabian-backed fighters, right? So he doesn't like Saudi Arabia because he wants to get his trade out. What happened when he tried to build had a contract with Libya to build a train track system all the way into Africa? What happened? We bombed him, right? We bombed Libya. We bombed the trade. We bombed the train tracks. What would have how much money would Putin have made if he had had that contract to build a train system all the way up from Libya to Africa and from Libya all the way to other parts of the Middle East? It's all about this idea of what Russia is willing to do, invest in building roads and infrastructure so that they can continue to get their trade out. So it goes back to that whole idea of, wow, I used to think Putin was really exciting and interesting, but now he's kind of boring. All he does is talk about his trade routes. And it's really true. It's like OCD, obsessive compulsive, give me my trade routes. And if Russia now has a GDP that's the same as Italy, it's because we destroyed the trade routes. So now what's happening is that Israel had a large influx of Russians that left Russia during the fall of the Soviet Union and before. Many of them were conservatives. Many of them worked in Russian intelligence in the late 70s, early 80s. And then after the fall of the Soviet Union, a huge influx of oh, somebody just sent me a text. A huge influx of changes started to happen. So anyway, that's what's going on with Putin. Let's go ahead and take a look at why he is mad at America. So Russia basically wants to get its trade out. We are with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is trying to close off the trade, bombing the future train routes, and trying to block Putin from getting trade to Iran via the Black Sea. And what other trade does he have on the Black Sea and on the Caspian Sea? Oil, right? He's building a Turkish oil stream, right? And he's also got a stream going to Europe. So who is he going to be competing with for oil now? Who is Putin trying to sell his oil to? He's trying to sell his oil to Europe and the Baltic neighbors. So what's going to happen to his contract with Iran? Do you think it would change the relationship he has with Iran? Yes. So if he works out a deal with Israel and Saudi Arabia, let me get my train routes out. I want my train routes. I want my contracts back in exchange for cutting ties with Iran. The only reason I have ties, he's saying, you want to know why I have ties with Syria and Iran? Because they protect my trade routes. Give me my trade routes. You don't want me to sell to Iran? You don't want me to sell to Syria? I'm not a bad guy. Just let me have my damn trade routes. You don't want to drink vodka because you don't believe in drinking alcohol? Okay, don't drink alcohol. But some people want to drink vodka. Let them drink their vodka. So, what can we do? What about the trade war with China? Well, we'll do that. We don't have time for that today, but let's do Putin. All right, Putin. So that's how it looks to me when I go in. It's trade routes, trade routes, trade routes. I'll give you peace. I'll stop selling weapons to Iran. Just let me get my trade out. This is the other thing I saw. They're getting gold from Iran. They're buying gold over the Black Sea. They're trading on the Black Sea. Caviar, gold, vodka. And they're craftsmen. They have excellent craftsmen in Russia, I'm being told, that then create jewelry. They sell it back to the Middle East. It's a very nice business. Again, It's just the practicality of it. It's a trade route. He shares the Black Sea with Iran. Of course, he wants to have a good relationship with the people he has a trade route with. He feels he's going to be victorious, but he's going to lose somebody who is an ally in the process. The Queen of Cups inverted. I think that Iran is in trouble. I don't think it has anything to do with America being saved. I think it has to do with trade partners and trade routes. He feels that it's a new time. His position is strong. However, my concern is that I had a vision that if Trump got pulled out of the White House, that Putin would become more aggressive. Hanging it up. Worried about the consequences. Feels he wants to negotiate new trade routes with the West and with NATO. And he wants to have some kind of mediation happen to ensure that he and his trade will not be ambushed in the future in exchange for some kind of a new relationship with the West. And he feels that he can get what he wants. However, he may have to abandon his loyalty to this administration in order to do it. He has to work out these deals directly with the UN and NATO. But it had to do with the trade routes, the ambushing, and the loss of, when they lost the land, when they lost the Soviet Union, they lost all that infrastructure they had built and all those trade routes, and then they became vulnerable to being attacked by foreign-backed fighters. That's basically what happened. All right, we've done an hour. Do people want me to keep going and finish up a couple more questions, or are we done? When Trump gets pulled out of the more aggressive, yikes, because of my parents. Yes, keep going. Yes, Epstein. We already did Epstein. Sorry. I can go ahead and finish. Keep going. There was something. Oh, people asked me to look at Israel. All right, I will look at Israel. I just want to say I am Israeli American, and some of us are very nice, progressive, liberal. We want peace. So it looked, from what I picked up about Israel, like Israel had, they get hired to supply intelligence to countries. That's how they make their money, is they supply intelligence to other countries. And it looks like the tapes, they got a hold of certain tapes of compromised people. I'm sure they kept it, but then it looks like they handed stuff over to the Americans. So they didn't keep it and weaponize it. They kept it and then handed it over to the Americans, which is interesting because that looks like something Netanyahu would do. He looked at the tapes and said, "Oh, very interesting. Oh, this person's been compromised. This person's been compromised. How can Israel use this information to secure her own interests? We're going to keep a copy, but because you're an ally, we're going to give everything over to American intelligence as well." In May of 2017, there was an article in Haaretz magazine, or newspaper, where, according to somebody out of the Mossad or someone out of intelligence, they had multiple tapes on Trump going back to 2017. They were admitting to having multiple tapes of Trump. So the fact that they were public, the fact that they came out and said it in an interview with Haaretz in May of 2017 means that as early as May of 2007, scratch that, March of 2017, it means far earlier they had already handed that information over to the Americans. If they were publicly talking about the information in an English-speaking newspaper, then for sure they had already handed stuff over to the Americans. That would be my interpretation. Let us see. So as far as Israel's concerned, if he was never officially an employee of the Mossad, but simply somebody who gave stuff to them to weaponize, the only thing they would say to somebody like Epstein is to take one for the team. You know, he's going to have to commit suicide. I don't think that he was employed by Mossad. I don't. I do think he gave information to people who were friendly to Mossad, and And then Mossad handed that information over to the U.S. Base card of the matter, communications, and coming out of the dark. Netanyahu could be facing legal problems of his own. We know that. But specifically, he's bogged down by a series. The equivalent of the Democratic Party has been after him for a while. There's a moderate person coming into the Knesset. It looks like Israel's moving towards a more moderate position. The karmic wheel is changing, and you can see the King of Cups coming in, peacemaker. Offers being made. Fears about continuing support. Israel has to renounce this because they receive financial aid from the United States, and you can see there's worried about the implications and backlash. So they're going to wash their hands of this. Like I said, they'd been working with the Americans. They handed stuff over and communicated with the Americans about it. That's what it looks like. And it looks like Netanyahu's extremist politics may be coming to an end in the coming days. There's a new guy who's going to be taking position. It looks like it's a man, and he's coming as the King of Cups. So just a more tolerant energy is moving into Israel. We'll see how it plays itself out. All right, everybody, we went over an hour. I'm going to call it quits. If you're still trying to get in for an appointment today, or not today, but this week, yes, I still have some openings. You can go to Tarot with Whimsy if you would like to do that. Also, I just wanted to mention, I'll show you pictures. We donated to This is racist. I don't know. Can everybody see it? We donated $250. All right. So you all donated $250 to racist. And we donated $250. Claire, I apologize. $250 to ACLU. So thank you, everybody. $500 raised for charity for the children at the border. Thank you for your donations. It was a little low this month because that's the money from the 3 weeks that I was on vacation. So we had a little bit of a dip, but we're doing great in terms of raising money for next month's charities. Please be sure and tell me what you'd like us to donate to. And that will be next month. Do you want me to keep doing children at the border or environmental or some other thing? Just let me know. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like I said, if you need to make an appointment with me, you can go to tarotwithwhimsy.com to make your appointment. And those are phone readings. If you want to come in to see me here at the office, just leave a little note saying you're coming into the office. Okay, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time. Peace out, everybody. Bye.